The Overseer.
The Overseer. Oh, God. By the way, an amazing name for.
We'll get into that, dude.
Yeah, we will
get into that.
Okay. The Overseer.
I have given a name to my pain. The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. You don't really think you'll win, do you? I'm Batman.
Hello and welcome to episode 137 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow our Twitter at BatPodNetwork. If you're listening to us on iTunes, if you take the time to rate and review the show, we'll read it on the air. BOF is also now on Patreon. If you like what we do here at BOF, whether it's the podcasts, vlogs, or the website itself, and you want to help support us if you're so inclined, head over to patreon.com/BatmanOnFilm and sign up. I am the host of today's episode, Ryan Haas, and on today's show, we are discussing a film that I've been waiting 19 years to talk about.
Really? 19 years? Yeah. All right, fair enough.
For real.
Okay.
It's Glass, the third and final entry of M. Night Shyamalan's Eastrail 177 trilogy. I would rather call it the Unbreakable trilogy, but that's neither here nor there. It began with Unbreakable in 2000 and got followed up with Split in 2017 and Glass, which came out this past Friday. And with me, as you have already heard, for this extra special occasion is, once again, my buddy and fan favorite guest, Paul Hermann.
Oh, I'm your fan favorite? I'm good. Thank you. Aw, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's 2 episodes in a row.
That's true. Has the other episode already dropped yet?
No.
Oh,
no.
All right, I won't discuss it yet then.
It'll be up before this one.
Well, yeah, I'd hope so. That'd be weird.
No, because episode 136, our Ghostbusters chat, talking Ghostbusters. I took the time to make a special Ghostbusters music intro for that show.
I'm excited to listen to it. You told me about it, so I'm excited.
Yeah, because like every time we do one of those more than one-off satellite shows, it's fun to have unique music we can use on multiple episodes. So that's something that is going to be fun to keep following as that movie develops.
Yeah, it's going to be that movie is going to be very interesting for us to talk about, because while the trailer drops, we'll probably do in retrospective of the original Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters 2. We probably don't need to do 2016, but it may not be a bad idea just to kind of revisit it, because I've only seen it one time.
I need an excuse to watch the extended edition version.
Yeah, I got it free when I linked I think all my movies anywhere account. It showed up, and I was like, oh, I have answered the call. Okay. I know. That's what I said. I was like, oh, I didn't order this. How'd that get there? That's weird. But this is kind of a random question. Did Ghostbusters 2 come out on 4K, or is it only the first one?
I believe they're both on 4K.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure
I think
it's
you're
on
right.
4K.
All right. Well, in that case, I have even more reason to go do those shows.
Yeah, and I don't have them on 4K either. So
it gives us an excuse to buy them. I'm like, I don't have them, and I want to get them anyway. So I mean,
yes, it's definitely on 4K.
Oh, fantastic! All right. Well, you know what's not on 4K?
What?
Unbreakable of the East Train 1970. What is it? 77. I've already butchered the name.
the Eastrail 177 trilogy. But I think that's deliberate.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, I'm glad it's not, because once Glass comes out on home video, they'll do. Surely
I don't know.
They'll do a thing.
I don't
know. I don't know either.
I don't know.
Because
Disney.
But yeah, that's it. Because Unbreakable is Disney, Split is Universal,
Universal, yeah,
and Glass is both.
But there is some hope.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, because
maybe at least they'll be separate or something. I don't know.
Or something, or maybe one will have the physical, or they'll just, no pun intended, split like everything 50-50.
Yeah.
Maybe a quarter because he's not.
Or maybe they'll do it like the Christopher Nolan 4K collection, where because like for that, this is real like a tangent, but for that Christopher Nolan 4K collection, I believe the Prestige was in a situation like that where like it was half owned by Disney or something, or distributed differently somewhere. So they let them do the box set, but it was like a limited time thing.
Yeah. And let's be real. I mean, by the way, there's no such thing as a tangent with us. It's just, this is how we do it, man.
It's just the flow.
Yeah, no, Unbreakable will be one of those things where it's like, it's not making money. You put it out with I think it's a strong possibility, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it didn't happen. But I think it would make sense for them. It's like, what the heck? I mean, the fact that they let them do it in the first place, and they're actually distributing the movie overseas, Glass, that
right.
is, that is saying that they might work together a little bit somehow. So I think, even. This is what I'm going to get greedy. We're just going to talk about Unbreakable for a second. For those who don't know.
No, we actually need to. We need to.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like, really fast to talk about Unbreakable. What I'm selfishly wanting is a Unbreakable special edition. Like, that's like, because DVD is not bad. There's some cool stuff in the DVD. But I think after Glass, I think that M. Night Shyamalan needs to do a commentary on each film. And he needs to explain the reasons, everything. Because there's a lot of explaining to do in this. Because I think there's one thing that Glass has shown us is that it's divided a lot of people. I would argue more people like it than hate it, judging by what we'll talk about later. We'll talk about the responses. But like I said, I'm selfishly wanting like a balls out, like all or nothing.
Me too.
A special edition where it's like you get even
really
more
dive
stuff.
deep into all the three
everything,
movies.
All three films.
Is there not a commentary on Unbreakable on the DVD?
There's not. There's not. There's what he's got, because I've scoured that collection, because it's a solid DVD collection. What it is it's a deleted scenes that we'll get into those later, right? He does commentary for, but it's not commentary. He does like an introduction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was watching some of those today, actually.
Yeah, I need to find my Unbreakable DVD. I just need to watch it, because I'll be honest, like
it's on the Blu-ray.
Yeah, but I don't want to buy the Blu-ray, because you know why? The Blu-ray packaging sucks. I'll just say it. It sucks. The DVD version rules.
Well, it's not as cool as the DVD. The DVD version has like
it's a great everything.
It has like the Alex Ross like postcard things in it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I don't have the postcards. I bought mine used. I don't think they're in there.
Oh, I see.
Maybe they are.
I bought it brand new.
It was a really great collection. It was one of those things that, like, M. Night wanted to give some deep stuff into that, and that's what I'm hoping for. I hope they release it in some like nice, like maybe an Eastrail 4K collection. That'd be cool. I mean, and then he throws some like a bunch of bones into that, because I feel that's what they're probably gonna do. It makes sense, but yeah. So I guess we're gonna talk about this movie that came out this weekend called Glass. Right, Ryan? Yeah.
I mean, so to go back a little bit, I mean, this is the third entry and third and final entry in this trilogy, and the reason we're talking about Glass is because we love Unbreakable, and Unbreakable has been in the conversation of top best important superhero movies for years now. Ever since it came out in 2000, it kind of opened pretty lukewarm, actually, but totally. I did not see it in the theaters. I was only like 13 or whatever in 2000.
So young, I hate you.
And but I didn't see it until it came out on DVD, and it was actually the first Shyamalan movie I had seen. I didn't see Sixth Sense until after. Yeah, but like it's one of those movies where it was definitely in my formative like movie watching years, like figuring out like what kind of movies I like and stuff like that. So just to
Were you
have
reading
this
comics?
Yeah.
Time?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, so Unbreakable has always been really kind of special to me because it's this really interesting deconstruction of comic books without there being source material. It's more of a commentary on like the characters and the archetypes without that stuff like making you feel like it has to be a certain way. Like when we watch Batman movies or Marvel movies, like you always think about, well, how is it like in the comics and how are they interpreting it correctly? But like with this, it's a clean slate and it's just can be its own thing kind of thing. But the way that Unbreakable kind of unfolds and stuff, it's a really interesting examination of those archetypes, and I think that's one reason why it's been, it's remained in the conversation for so long.
Well, and for people who want people to know, we're just going to lightly touch on Unbreakable and Split for those who want, if they want deeper. Me and Ryan wanted to go do other films, but we wanted to bring other people in it besides just me and him. So
yeah,
we hopefully will eventually do an Unbreakable and Split show if this does well, if people want this show. And maybe we'll do it anyways because we like to do it because we're punk rock like that. But we'll see. But we wanted to make sure we got this out during the Glass weekend. And to touch on my feelings for Unbreakable, and we'll get to Split in a second. For me, Unbreakable, I saw that in the theater and I loved Sixth Sense. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea what Unbreakable was about. I thought it was really fascinating from the trailers.
Because it wasn't even marketed like a comic book movie.
It wasn't.
It's labeled as like a thriller suspense movie. And if you read like the description, like the synopsis of it, it has nothing to do with comic books.
And
it's
I think
fascinating.
Well, I think M. Night also told them to advertise it like that, but they refused to. They said no one will watch this movie if you do that. And I remember reading in the a review before we saw the movie. I was in Minnesota at the time at my Bible school that I was at, and I remember everyone was going to go see it. We had a big group going, and I read a review online or somewhere, and they mentioned something about comic books, and I was like, "That's really weird." And at the time, I wasn't reading comics because. One, I was barely working, didn't have any money, and I just had gotten out of comics by that point because comics got really bad, in the late 90s. They just were bad. And so I hadn't read comics for probably about 4 years at that point. I'd say about 4 or 5 years. But I was just kind of peripherally on keeping track of things. I think I knew Logan the Wolverine Origins comic was coming out, Origin comic with Wolverine Origin. I heard about that. I'm just kind of peripherally just kind of staying back because of the X-Men movie came out, and that was a childhood dream. So I was still connected, and I was still loved those characters. I knew Spider-Man was being made and all that stuff. I was keeping track of that through Ain't It Cool and things like that. But for the most part, I just would stay away. And I remember they mentioned comic books in a review, and I went, that's weird. And it kind of went in one ear, went out the other. And I remember sitting down in the theater, and there's an opening shot of mentions about comic books and how people buy them and read them and whatever, and I'm like, this is weird. And then I watched the movie and I'm like, that was not what I was expecting. I was expecting something like The Sixth Sense. And again, I in my superhero loving heart, I was just like, what is this? And I just kind of it was okay, it was whatever. It wasn't as good as The Sixth Sense. I remember saying that. And that summer, one of my friends who knew I loved comic books and superheroes was like, oh, dude, you probably love Unbreakable. I was like, it's all right. He's like, really? You didn't like Unbreakable, or you thought I was all right? And I said, yeah, it was whatever. And he said, of all people, I thought you would be the one who would love that movie. It's a superhero movie. And for some reason, it just didn't click. And when he said that, I went, yeah, you're right. I should probably rewatch that because it is something more up my alley. So we sat down and watched it, I think the next day or that night. And I just fell in love with it. And I was like, that is amazing. And I've always said it's one of the best superhero movies you'll ever see. It is.
Superhero origins too.
I would say, really, really fast. People call it a comic book movie, and it's not a comic book movie because it's not based off anything. It's a superhero movie. So, and obviously superheroes are steeped in comic books. I mean, that's where their origins come from. So I understand what people are trying to say when they say that, but it's be very clear. It's a love letter to the archetypes of superheroes in comic books.
That's perfect. That's a perfect way to say it.
Yeah. And that to me, and that's when I realized what it was. And that's when I identified with it even more. It was like, man, this is actually more up my alley. And I fell in love with it. And then I watched it and I remember talking about it with all these people, and then it kind of got forgotten.
Yeah. Well, think about how it came out in 2000, right? And so it's it's deconstructing this stuff and using comic books as an archetype for these characters and superheroes. What if superheroes were real? That's the conceit of the whole thing, right? And think about great superhero movies we had. We just had the X-Men that just started. The last Batman movie that came out was Batman and Robin. Batman Begins is 5 years away. It's in the middle of this. it's like doing something really different in the middle of something where we don't have all this normal, awesome superhero content going on, both in comics, like you said, or otherwise in movies, you know, to a large degree. So what's interesting is, like I said, I've been waiting since 2000 to see a sequel to this. Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting is I think maybe, you know, we'll never know, like, if a sequel that would have come out earlier would have been better or worse than Glass. I kind of think it wouldn't be. But what's really interesting is now that we have Glass 19 years later as a third part in a trilogy, it's coming out right in the middle of this superhero renaissance of, you know, superhero movies. And I think that's really fascinating because it's almost like a full circle thing of, you know, Unbreakable trying to be like, look at all these cool characters and what if this was real and look at these archetypes, and it's almost like the world is caught up with it in a way.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think, and move on to Split really fast, and we'll finally get to Glass. When you saw Unbreakable though, when the DVD came out, I watched it like crazy. I watched all the special features, and I was always intrigued. Like, one of the first things that M. Night Shyamalan says is like, this story is a whole movie that is the first act of a story. I originally had an idea for, you know, 3 acts or 3 parts, but then I cut the acts 2 and 3 off and decided to make an entire film just about act 1. And I was like, oh man. And I always wondered in the back of my head, what could happen after that? Where does this go? And M. Night, to that point, had never really made a sequel to anything of his movies, you know. But Unbreakable was always the one where people would go back and say, oh, are you going to make a sequel to that? Make a sequel to that. People love that, you know. But it wasn't immediate.
Comic books
though,
are more
right?
popular. No, it was a slow burn thing.
It was a slow burn,
and every few years it would be like, come on, when's that going to happen?
Well,
and he would always like say, I've got an idea in the back of my head, or that's something I want to get to at some point, someday. And I always wanted to see where it would go. Like, were you the same way eventually?
Oh yeah. I mean, as soon as I fell in love with the movie, like that when it came out on DVD, I would scour, and every time I would hear, like, you know, I scoured Ain't It Cool back in the day, like on the reg, and every once in a while they'd have M. Night Shyamalan kind of mention Unbreakable and saying, yeah, but see, here's the thing, and I think this is what's really cool about time sometimes, even though you get older and get old and it sucks, but like whatever, you know, but with time also comes like change in entertainment, and also change in dynamics of what like studios and what other things do, and how the climates change. And, you know, 19 years ago, or let's say 15 years ago, a couple years after Glass came out, or excuse me, Unbreakable came out.
Unbreakable.
Yeah, you're not going to, there still was no reason to make that movie, even though there was a cult status developing, and M. Night started struggling in the box office a little bit. Like, he started kind of backtracking, and he was like, oh no, this isn't good. And, you know, whatever. And whether it's his fault or not, you know, what also changed was the fact that there's more accessibility now for you know, one, I think it's cheaper to make films as time goes on. That's just evident through, you know, everything, because, you know, look at what we're going through. One, it's cheaper to make more films. And I also think that there's more competition out there that wants more content too. So the fact is, you've got now so many different areas that you could bring material to that you don't necessarily have to beg a giant studio to make the movie for you. So
right. To
me, it actually really helped M. Night, because one, he kind of like, he got beat down a little bit, and then kind of I don't want to say retreated, but he kind of went back and reevaluated, like, okay, what do I want to do? And he started making like better decisions, I think, from a movie standpoint. Like, he started doing like, okay, you know what? I did After Earth, or not After Earth. What's that movie called? Earth One, or whatever it's called, with Will Smith and his kid.
Yeah, it's After Earth.
After Earth.
Yeah,
I think that.
And he did that. He got deep into the. He started to be more of a studio director, you know, when he did The Last Airbender, and then he did After Earth, and then after those got all these scathing reviews and stuff, I think he just kind of, like you said, he kind of reevaluated what he was doing with his career.
What he was doing, The Happening was kind of a failure.
That was and that was around that same time. But then after After Earth is when he started to reevaluate and decided, I'm going to get back to basics and stuff. And that's when he made The Visit. And that's where he started to do like his self-financed stuff and everything like that.
Keywords there, self-financed.
Yeah.
And I think and this is where I think he realized, like, you know what? Like, I can just bet on myself because I make cheap movies, and no matter what, I'll make my money back because my name alone will get people in. And I think he was smart. With The Visit, I mean, that's a cheap movie. I never seen it, but it's a cheap movie.
It's good.
I heard it's great, and I am going to check it out eventually. But I think, like with that, he made that movie, and then he went on. And now let's get the Split, because this is I think where the genius of M. Night really starts kicking in, and I think he planned
this with The Visit. He wanted to get back on even footing with himself.
Yes. So it was a moderate hit, or I would never hit. It did well critically. And I think that kind of got him some good juju, if you will, for some confidence in himself, one. And also I think in a studio like a Blumhouse to say, yeah, we'll distribute your movie for you, kind of a thing. So then he went to make Split. And I want to tell a quick story. And I told, and here Ryan thought it was going to be hard for us to fill up like an hour of time. I told you, dude, it's going to be easy, really fast. So when Split came out, I thought, okay, cool. Like James McAvoy, it's a oh my gosh, I can't think of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Psychological. I can't talk. Psychological thriller, and James McAvoy played all these different people, and it's M. Night, and I'm like, man, the movie looks really crazy, but I had no interest of seeing it because, again, the M. Night, like, kind of like, negativity was like, whatever, But
well, see, on the other hand, I had always remained a steadfast M. Night fan, even through everything. I had
show off.
I would see. Well, see. I'm sure this probably ties into your story, hopefully. So with every movie he would come out with, I would still go see it like opening weekend, even if liked it or didn't like it to various degrees. Like I like Signs, I like The Village, and then it started to get a little downhill with like Lady in the Water, and The Happening was really weird, and I still saw Last Airbender. I never did see After Earth, though. That's the one movie that I didn't see because it was marketed weird. It's almost like they didn't even want you to know that Shyamalan
you're right.
directed it. Like
I had no idea he directed it either.
Yeah, that was really weird. So I still haven't seen that, but then I definitely went out and saw After Earth.
No. After Earth is terrible. The Visit.
Yeah, so I definitely went out and saw The Visit and everything. So
you did? Okay,
I was already we saw The Visit opening weekend because we're like, oh man, M. Night's back doing his thing again, and so I again was on board with Split because I was like, great, more M. Night. I gotta see. And again, I was like, I know the kind of films he makes. I know that they could or could not have twist endings or some poignant thing at the end, and I'm going to go opening weekend so I don't get spoiled. So I totally went out like the Thursday preview show or whatever and saw Split. And that's what I did.
So, here's the thing. I think, didn't you see it Friday? Because I think you texted me, because this is what I remember.
Whichever the first screening I could see.
I think it was Friday because I remember, because you weren't the first person to tell me, but you were the person to finally confirm it for me. So Split came out. I was like, whatever. And then Jake Lane, who is a big Unbreakable fan. I did a podcast a while ago on an old show called Unmuted, and we did like a 2.5 hour breakdown of Unbreakable. As long as
I love that show. It's good.
Oh, thank you. And Jake Lane texted me and he said, "Dude, read this and let me know when your jaw hits the floor." And I looked at it for a split second and I went, "Hold up, I'm just gonna stop," because I saw Split and I saw Unbreakable and I closed it immediately and went, I'm just going to ignore I just said, I'm just going to stop and just move on. I think I'm going to go watch Split. And I just kind of just wanted to calmly okay. And then I kind of all right, I think this, I kind of started pumping throughout the day. And then you texted me and said, you got to go see Split. And I'm like, okay.
Because I told you that because I had already seen it online.
You've already seen it. And
I don't want to. Well, you were like, I don't really care. I'm not
no, it was something.
Maybe I'll wait.
Yeah, I said maybe I'll wait because I was like, it was something weird, or I think he sent it to me and I just kind of ignored it, or something like that. I didn't take it very seriously, or something like that. So after you had told me, and I knew you were an Unbreakable fan, so after you texted me, that's what it was. You sent me the message and you said, "Dude, you need to see Split." I went, "Okay." You're the second person to tell me that. Why? And you're like, "I don't want to tell you." I said, "Just tell me, does it connect to Unbreakable?" And you said, yes. And I went, that's it. I got to see it right now. I tried to see it that night.
Because I was like, do you really want me to tell you? I'm like, just go see it.
I said, no, just tell me. I said, just tell me. You have to tell me. Because I did not want to waste my time to a theater. Because it's hard. I'm lazy with theaters. And
I know. And
once you told me it was connected, you didn't tell me what happened. You just said it's connected. Right. I said, enough for me. I'm going. And I saw it the next night with my buddies, and or that weekend. I think I saw it that Sunday. And I was blown away. And I thought not only was it was a great movie, but the fact that you had James McAvoy, it was, obviously for people who, maybe who are curious, it's the birth of the supervillain. And then I devoured everything afterwards I could get on Split, and how it connected to Unbreakable, and how M. Night basically said that this was a character in Unbreakable that was supposed to be what he fought. And then it just got, again, like you said, he got away from him, and he said, you know what, I'm just going to make it about the first part. So, there's that bad guy that David takes on in the very end of the Unbreakable, where he kind of accepts his role as being a superhero. And I'm wondering if that was always supposed to be Kevin Wendell Crumb.
I think he said something about that too, because the way that he captures the girls, like,
exactly,
it's very really similar.
Yeah, he makes it a family. And it's the girls that obviously the parents are dead at that point. But yeah, like it felt like that. And but yeah, Split. James McAvoy was incredible. I thought he was.
That doesn't work without an actor like that.
No, it doesn't. And I love the fact that the whole movie, and not just Kevin, but oh my gosh, the Anna Taylor-Joy, right? Is that her name?
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy. She is fantastic as Casey, and that story was dark and deep, and after watching it a second time, it made the things that happened made way more sense. I'm like, oh man, she's actually protecting the girls because she's been in their situation. And it was like, holy moly! Like this is not only deep from this is tied to a superhero movie that I love called Unbreakable. This is its own great film, and the ending is really insane. But then like not just a normal ending, like just how the Beast lets her go because he realizes that you are scarred, so therefore you are pure. I'm out of here, and he leaves her. And he leaves her. I mean, like, whoa, that is so messed up, like nutty, like insane. Yeah,
like he still has rules and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And so, and then he makes him such an awful, like evil character. That's but then you also like know that like, okay, with Unbreakable, then you have the appearance of David Dunn, and you're automatically, if you know who that is, you're like, oh man, like the Kevin or David's gonna go after Kevin, like it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like. Split, I'll maintain that like that movie is one of the best magic tricks I've ever seen in it on film, and it was such a good theatrical experience for me again because I'd seen Unbreakable, loved Unbreakable, always wanted to see what happens next, and I'm sitting there in the theater, haven't read anything, haven't been spoiled, and I'm watching Split, and I'm just thinking to myself, man, there's all these subliminal things that are happening to me while I'm watching that movie, and every time they. When Dr. Fletcher says like, oh yeah, these people haven't reached their full potential and, they can be more and they can have powers and, there's like little Easter eggs and stuff throughout the movie. And I'm like, that would be a really interesting way, for, if Unbreakable, like, had something like that in it. That's kind of like Unbreakable, people with abilities and stuff.
You actually thought that. So you had no idea going into it, right? You had
no clue. Clue. But I was thinking that while I was watching the movie, and then more towards the end of the movie when like the Beast is like, when you find out that it's real, he's a real thing and he's got these powers and stuff like that. I was like, man, this is so cool. This movie is awesome. And he's like a real, monster guy and stuff. I'm like, wouldn't that be awesome if he could like fight, David from Unbreakable? And I was literally thinking all that stuff out loud in my head, of course. And then
really fast, no, did you see any? Did you think of anything during the train and like the music kind of kicks in a little bit?
The train didn't trigger anything for me. It didn't make sense at all.
Okay.
Which is crazy now that the train like really makes sense once you see Glass. Yes. But
which we are getting to. We're just.
But the music.
Touch on these other things.
Yeah, but the music that did is at the end, of course. So as soon as so Split basically ends, and then all of a sudden you have this last shot of Anya Taylor-Joy in the police car, and then all of a sudden there's like this outward shot of the Philadelphia Zoo, and then this piece of music starts playing, and I'm thinking to myself, instantly I knew it was from Unbreakable, because I'm so into the score, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like thinking to myself, that's from Unbreakable. That's from Unbreakable. And then it keeps going, and I'm like, that's definitely from Unbreakable. And then I'm like, why are they playing that music? Why are they playing this music? Oh my God, why are they playing this music? And it keeps going throughout, and then there's that last scene where Kevin is talking to himself through in his different personalities in the mirror and stuff, and the Unbreakable music keeps playing, and I'm like, why is this playing? What?
Man.
And then it cuts to the diner, and as soon as it cuts to the diner, I knew that whenever that shot finished, I was going to see David Dunn again. And then I did, and then I was blown away. And I was like, oh my God, I just watched the sequel to Unbreakable and I didn't even know it,
Brilliant.
And
Super
brilliant. It was like the most, like you said, you already watched this movie. I was already into it. I already thought it was really well done, well made movie. And then you add this extra twist on it that's like, oh, plus it's a sequel to one of your favorite movies ever.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't even know it. And I was like, it sounds nerdy, but I was just like so
well, you didn't expect
it.
I mean,
it was so unexpected.
Right.
Such, like I said, such a magic trick of a movie. Like, to go in the theater and watch something like that. There's only a handful of movies, like, all 3 Dark Knight Trilogy movies and stuff like that. And then this is definitely up there for me in terms of like, oh my God, like what a crazy emotional experience that a movie can actually give you. And so as soon as I was out there, I'm like, oh my God, what does this mean? Like, it's a sequel, but it's not going to end there, right? Like, there's going to be more. And so, of course, after that is when I texted you and I texted all my friends that liked Unbreakable, and I was like, you have to go see this, because what I was trying to do was protect what happened. I wanted what happened to me to happen to other people. I didn't want like people to know, oh, it's a sequel to Unbreakable and just go watch it. I'm like, no, you need to just go watch the movie so you can have the same experience that I did, because it made it so much better.
Yeah, I'm glad. I wouldn't have watched it though, so I would have been spoiled eventually. And I'm glad you did, and I'm glad Jay kind of. I went, that's weird. Why does he want me to watch Split so much? And I was like, whatever. And then again, because I remember he tried. And I want to say I went to look at something or something like that. It was something weird. Like I was busy at work or something, and it was like, I wonder why he wants me to look at that. So when you texted, and I think you texted me and you said, dude, you need to see this movie. I'm like, And then when you told me that, I was like, I gotta see this immediately. I was blown away, like how it was a secret sequel to Unbreakable. And you read all about it, and at that time, M. Night's like, the plan is to make a third one, but I got to make sure people want to see this. This trilogy, and anyway, so it's all predicated on Split. And the reason he was saying that is because he didn't know if he was going to be able to make that third one. And it would have been a shame if he didn't have to, or if he couldn't, but then obviously Split came out and was a pretty giant success. It made a lot of money. It was made for cheap, and it was very successful. And again, the other magic trick that he pulled was that he made this movie that could stand on its own merits without any sort of Unbreakable connection. It was almost like the Unbreakable thing was just, for the fans that had stuck with him for so long, and he made it stand alone without it relying on that at all, which I thought was brilliant. And, was marketed as this like freaky, like cerebral psychopath serial killer kind of movie. And that's the crowd that was in the theater with me when I saw it. And I saw it in a packed theater, and it was all like, kids and teenagers and stuff. And they were just like, oh man, what's happening? And then I felt like I was the only one, like at the end, that was like, oh my God, it's Unbreakable. No, it was all teenagers that are at both my showings. I went and saw Split.
Yeah. So like, and people really latched onto that performance from James McAvoy. So that was brilliant. And that's one reason, that the movie was so successful, and it was made for cheap, and it stood on its own legs, and it made a lot of money. So
So is this,
that's why we're going to get Glass. Yeah.
And really fast, I want people to know, like, okay, Split was made for $9 million. Okay. Like this is, I mean, like, with a lot of money that we'll never, at least someone, maybe someone rich is listening and I don't know, but I'll never see that money. I'll never see sniff anything close to it. But obviously for a movie that's like made for theaters, that's dirt cheap. And for
that's a horror movie budget.
Yeah. This is an art house movie, basically, because it was distributed by Blumhouse, correct?
Yeah.
So this movie that's basically the birth of a supervillain that's like done secretly, essentially, made for $9 million. And then it makes a total worldwide gross of $278 million.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's pretty ridiculous. So and then we're going to go into Glass. So then obviously after M. Night, like the movie comes out and is a giant success, he's like, yeah, I'm going to make a third one. This is it. And
yeah.
It's kind of nuts because I guess, do you want to talk about how he about how he funded it himself a little bit?
Yeah.
So really quick, and I just found this out. So the movie Glass cost $20 million to make, which is, almost double the budget of Split, right? Or it's double the budget. Not almost, it is double the budget. Right. Over double the budget.
Well, and one of the issues with making Glass is that, Unbreakable was through Disney, a wing of Disney, and Split was Blumhouse and was distributed by Universal. Mm-hmm. And he was only able to even get Bruce Willis and that character and stuff, David Dunn at the end of Split, almost as like a please let me do this Disney thing. And sure enough, they let him do it. They just gave him permission to do it.
Right. Well, and it looks like, if for what we understand is, Disney is doing this distribution for the foreign rights of Unbreakable.
Yeah, so, international, yeah.
Yeah, international. Yeah. So
for Glass.
Yeah, it's for Glass. So, and look at Unbreakable. This is what's fascinating. So this put it in perspective here. So he made Glass for $20 million. So he did it for over double the budget of Split. Unbreakable back in 2000 was made on a production budget of $75 million at that time, which is God. Yeah. And look at this. It grossed only $248 million worldwide. So you're looking like...
It shows you just like how much money gets poured into a studio motion picture at that time, especially.
Yeah. And plus all the promotion.
Marketing. I remember it being heavily marketed.
It was. And so this movie probably just barely broke even, maybe a little bit of a profit, but not enough to even sniff a sequel. So here's my point. This is why I said the years benefited M. Night, because he could make a movie for super cheap at $9 million, made almost a $300 profit, or $300 million profit off of that, almost. It was $248 million that it totally grossed just in the box office alone. And then you also had think about all the rights for video. I mean, that movie made a killing off profit, right? So you go to Unbreakable. You go to Glass, $20 million to make. So he only goes up another $11 million essentially for Glass, and
that's a budget that he set too. Because after Split, he said that I'm going to make a third and final movie in this trilogy that's a sequel to both Split and Unbreakable, with all the characters in it, colliding together in the same world. Both Universal and Disney were like, we'll either one of them, we'll give you a blank check. Make this movie. Yep. We want it. We want this movie, And that's when he was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to make it for $20 million and I want to finance it myself, and you guys can handle distribution.
Right. And so, and I think the reason why is because obviously Unbreakable had a giant budget, and it looks fantastic. I mean, Unbreakable is one of my favorite movies ever. Like one of our favorites, and it looks great, and it's filmed beautifully. There's actually great effects and things like that still, even though it's not like a big budget movie, but it's still like it's a little bit, it takes place in more places, let's say, than Split and both Glass, because Split and Glass would take place mainly in like the same area for majority of the film. And again, I think M. Night realized I do better, and he even said this in the same thing when he talked about financing the film himself. He does better when he has constraints, because he has more
and pressure
and pressure. So and I think that that all played a role because he realized I did a lot better in Split because I was confined to these, limitations, and the limitations made me do more, think outside the box because I wanted to do, I only had a certain amount of things I could do within that box, in that budget. And, and like you said, Disney was going to get, and they all offered him a blank check. He could have made like a $100 million movie in now money or $75 million budget for now, which back in 2000, $75 million. I mean, it's probably adjusted for inflation. I'm assuming is almost closer to 150, maybe 200 million.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a mathematician by any means. So, but you guys get the picture. It's closer to 150 now. So, or whatever. So, I mean, the fact is, he's like, no, I'm going to make it for a smaller amount of money. And I thought that was brilliant. And the thing is, M. Night followed up The Sixth Sense with a movie that no one was expecting in Unbreakable. And it backfired a little bit on him. A little bit. It was a lukewarm reaction, but then it gained a huge cult following over the years. Split came out and it hit audiences immediately because you got a charismatic actor just acting his butt off, and also an actress that acted her butt off and did amazing. And then you combine it with the fact that, you can combine this cult movie with a movie that's had some success with an actor that's pretty well known now, or somewhat known, in James McAvoy. And then you also put in the fact that you have Samuel Jackson coming back as the main villain from Unbreakable and Glass, and it's named after him, Mr. Glass. Yeah. And you've got yourself you're probably setting yourself up for a successful movie. And this is where I guess we'll get into Glass itself, because here's the thing. And this is where I'm really you have to give M. Night the benefit. He did not he never compromises. And for better, for worse, that's M. Night. And the Eastrail 77 trilogy. Did I say
177?
See, I always want to say 77. It's 177. The Eastrail 177 trilogy is all those tropes of heroes and villains in comic books and putting them in that realism spectrum and not wavering. And M. Night brings that into Glass. And now I had no idea what to expect as far as how he was going to end it, because we just didn't know. And now we have it. So Ryan, how do you want to tackle this? You're the main host. So how do you want to do this? Oh man.
Well, should we work backwards and talk about the big twist first and then talk about the main movie?
Maybe we should talk about if we liked it or not, and then just talk about if it was a fitting ending, because we've already built up. Yeah, let's do that. Because here's the deal. We both love Unbreakable. People know we both love Unbreakable and Split. We love them to death. And
this kind of ties into the critical and fan reactions about Glass too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And Unbreakable and Split. they all have a weird reaction, in my opinion. Because to be honest, I'm surprised people liked Split. I did not know, but it's because James McAvoy, to be honest. If it's anyone else, it's probably not as successful. But we'll just say it right now. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so when the review embargo for Glass lifted, and everybody I was following that, there's the critics that were posting reviews, and they were pretty much universally negative, I was freaking out. I was like, what? Oh no. What? Is it bad? What happened? And I kept hearing bad things about it's okay. The first 30 minutes are the best part. And then, boy, the third act is just garbage and this and that. Yeah. And I was freaking out. But then after talking to you and after, talking to John Beerley, I was just thinking okay, well, we're obviously in a much different time with critics and Rotten Tomatoes and stuff than we were years ago. And of course, a film that's literally 19 years in the making is going to have a lot of preconceived notions on it, right? But that's not ever something that I had for this. It's just a movie that I wanted to see and I wanted to happen, whether it's good or bad, right? And I didn't know what to expect, like you said, so I was just wanted to see it play out so I could judge it on its own merits. And so you all talked me off the ledge a little bit. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go in, because some of our friends that got to see it earlier than I did, and they were like, calm down. Even you saw it before me, and you were like, I think you're gonna like it. Just watch it.
I knew you'd like it because. And here's the thing, I was very careful. I started kind of scouring the Glass hashtag right before I saw it, and I was very careful to see spoilers. I was just kind of, I did enter it, I did risk it a little bit, but I kind of prepared myself. If I see anything that's even hinting, or if I see like, I don't like it, when this, and I'll just be like, whatever. I didn't see anything, but I saw all the critics were very harsh on this movie. Is it justified? That doesn't matter. And I want to make this very clear. Like, and I even posted on Twitter when it happened. I said, it's a bummer when like, not everyone is, the critics don't get on a movie you like, whatever, it sucks. It's like, it's a disappointing, it's like that's a bummer. But you know what? Ultimately, it doesn't matter because, I like Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance and the Fantastic Four Josh Trank movie. And literally no one likes those movies. And you know what? Like, critics also didn't like Venom, and Venom ended up like audiences actually ended up
stomping
loving
them.
Just loving Venom. And so to me, Rotten Tomatoes, it's to me, it's like this. Critics, can all love something, can all hate something, but it never is going to diminish what I think of the movie. Essentially, it's like it definitely prepares me it kind of gets me ready to prepare for something maybe, but it never really gives me like a definitive whatsoever. So
yeah,
just for the record, I think it's a good tool, but I don't think it's not as. Some people live by it, for sure. And you know what? And those are usually the general audience members. And they're like, I'm just going to like, if it has a good rating on Rotten Tomatoes, it means people like it. I'm probably going to like it. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, that's not my thing. But I definitely see
especially a movie like this.
Yeah.
Especially a movie like this.
Especially because here's the thing with this. If you are, for me, Glass is an art house movie. You can say it's not all you want, but it is. It's strictly.
It's like a Frank Miller made 3 crazy books that he wanted to make over 20 years, and boy, that's it, or something like that. It's like, if you're trying to use a comic book analogy for it, it's like it's a creative team that did what they wanted. Yes, and it's full their
control.
Story.
Yeah, this is M. Night's full control, and he, like I said, this was not meant to be. This is an art like. I really do consider these films art house movies in a way, and people can argue with me, and these are fine, but like they really are. Like they are not meant to be like commercial. These are not commercial films, in my opinion. Like because honestly, if you make a commercial film, you probably don't make Split at all. And Unbreakable was not a commercial film. You made that film because of Sixth Sense's success. And M. Night thought, I'm going to, I'm going to bank off
kind
of
cheat the system a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But Split is these are not films. This is artistic. Like, I'm going to throw this out there because I want to make this story. He felt compelled to make the Kendall Wendell Crumb movie and have it tied to whatever.
Yeah.
And then
you don't put your house up for to raise the capital for Glass if you're not really wanting to make this movie and tell this story. And
that you could at least recoup the money so that your house is safe, and and that's the thing. He still could have made someone else pay for it, but he said, no, I want to be able to make it on my own money, get as much back as I can, invest in myself, and do it that way. Because he knew he built up so much goodwill in Split. But these are artsy superhero movies, straight up. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. I think that's great because it gives a different. I love what he's doing with it. So with Glass, going into it
in this environment we have of like these crazy epic, superhero movies that are so like faithful to their comic book counterparts, it's again very refreshing to have movies like Glass.
Right. So when you have Glass, which is this movie that's, taking the superhero genre and kind of deconstructing it and looking at the tropes in a realistic realm, just like how Unbreakable and Split did, critics kind of criticize. And the one main thing that we all heard was the third act. And, Ryan, going into it, I was excited, and I will admit my theater experience wasn't great. My wife hated the movie. Just be very frank with everyone. She hated it, but she also didn't like Split. So if you didn't like Split, you're not going to like this movie. So, she loved but she loves Unbreakable, but she does not like Split. Which go figure. So I'm like, whatever. So take her out of the equation. But I had a weird theater experience. People on their phones, fantastic. I love them. And no, I hate you. So, but whatever. But that being said, it almost ruined my experience, but it didn't, because I was entrenched in the movie. Did I love Glass? As of right now, I don't love it. I like it. But I will say this before we get deep into it. I haven't stopped thinking about it since I saw it. And I went from, I'm probably not going to see that until it comes out on video, to I think I want to see it soon. Like maybe next weekend with like my brother or with a friend or something like that. So I will say right now off the bat, I think really quickly before we dive super deep into what's good, what's bad, what's not good, we'll get to the third act. Unbreakable is still number one for me. Split is close right behind, and I think then it goes Glass. But it's no way a detriment to Glass. I think Glass still is still a good superhero movie. It's just not what you're expecting. It's not action packed. It's not what. But again, Unbreakable and Split are not action packed. They're all emotionally in slow burns, and this is even more of a slow burn in my opinion. So Ryan, what's your thoughts on Glass?
My theater experience was great. I mean, it was like, again, I saw it very late at night, as late as possible. When you have a baby, it's easy to go see a movie late at night. So that's what I did. I was just by myself in the theater, saw it in IMAX, and by the time the movie was over, I didn't know what I was going to feel or what I wanted to feel, but I was very emotionally moved by the time the credits were rolling, and I just kind of had to sit there. I sat there through the whole credits, and I was just like, reflecting on just not just that movie, but all three, thinking that like, okay, I've sat through, this movie, and I think it's the conclusion of a really important and interesting trilogy of films that examine these characters, and I'm already like on the Glass bandwagon. Like I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't know what to think. And one of my best friends who's a huge Unbreakable fan, my friend Dave, who does awesome, by the way, for people who like action figures, he does awesome action figure shots at Father's Figures.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. He is a giant Unbreakable fan. He's one of my best friends. He's I don't know if he was one of the people I saw Unbreakable with. I don't think it was, but I met him during that time, and we both, we just loved Unbreakable and wouldn't stop talking about it for years and years and years. And, and I was one of the people that told him about Split. I'm like, dude, you need to see Split as soon as possible. And he finally saw it and was like, dude. And then, obviously he texted me, he saw it Thursday night and said, I'm still processing. That's all he said. And I went, I don't know what that means. And after seeing the third act, I'm like, okay, I see what it means. And I will say, I had to sit and really think about it. It is a kind of a punch in the gut, to be quite honest. And obviously this is spoilers, so if you haven't seen Glass, your time is to get out now. But before we go deeper, but yeah, it was something that really I had to keep thinking about. And the more I thought about it, and John Beerley, who couldn't be on the show because it's too late for him. So sorry, John. He did say, and I don't think he'll mind me saying this, but he said, the more I think about it, the more I like what M. Night did. He did it his way. Yeah. And it's kind of telling everyone off basically that this is what he wanted to do. And it wasn't what fans expected and critics expected.
Yeah. Now, I mean, just because I'm saying I really like the movie doesn't mean like I'm not still processing it myself. Like I am totally still like in the processing phase, like trying to figure out, what's the meaning and place of this movie with the other two, and the themes and stuff. And I, for me, I love that because I like the fact that it's like this giant puzzle and we're going to keep thinking about it. We're going to keep talking about it. I was the same way with The Dark Knight Rises. Like I loved that movie when I saw it, but it was also like, again,
you had to bring that up, didn't you?
I do, because I was still people like, I think I'm gonna like Glass because my track record with third entries and trilogies that are going to be closed off forever, I tend to like them. But again, it's the same thing. Like it's a full creative control. Like I told a story I wanted to tell, beginning, middle, and end kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and the thing for me is, when I watch the movie, I totally get why critics didn't like it. And, and here's the deal. And I guess I'm just going to go straight to why, like a one kind of minor gripe is I think it hits you over the head a little bit with its themes at the very end, at the very, very, very end. And but at the same time, it kind of makes sense because that's what kind of the first two movies are about. And basically, I guess we should just start talking about before, and that's a minor gripe, but still, like, it sits way better with me now as it went from a minor gripe to like, I've accepted it now. kind of a thing. So this movie is something,
and for me, it like earned it. That's the one I was
totally
thinking.
Yeah, and I think that as I think about it more, that to me is a sign of a decent movie or a good movie is when you can keep thinking about it when you didn't love it at first, but it wasn't bad, but you keep revisiting in your head like man.
Yeah.
And so I guess let's just get into do you want to talk about the third act? Like, should we talk about the characters first? Like what should we do? This is where it's kind of hard because I feel like the third act really is like I think everyone's fine with the movie. It seems like every critic is fine up until the third act. So I guess we should just talk about that elephant in the room. So
yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So for those who haven't seen it, now's your time to leave, but here we go. In the third act, it's revealed that Ellie Staple, the psychologist that is, basically holding them at this institute for the whole movie, basically for like at least 80% of the movie, is actually a part of a secret organization that is supposed to silence and keep hidden the fact that people can become superheroes and have superpowers, which basically ushers in the secret organization trope from comic books. And obviously at the very end they kill both Glass and they kill the overseer. The overseer. Oh God, by the way, an amazing name for
we'll get into that, dude.
Yeah,
we'll get into that.
Okay. The overseer and also the Beast, Kendall Wendell Crumb.
Yeah. And the movie to that point makes you think that there's going to be this big climactic comic book-esque final confrontation on
what we
this
all wanted
giant,
to happen, right?
What we all thought was going to happen. The movie continually makes you think that this big climax is going to happen, this big confrontation at the top of the tallest building in Philadelphia that's just opening, that's opening up like that day or whatever, or in a couple days, or Glass is going to like blow the whole building up or something like that.
Right.
So like in your head, you're just like, oh man, because I kept thinking through the film, like, are they really going to have this like crazy,
do they hide
Matrix Revolutions, like battle in the rain with like special effects and stuff, like duking it out and people watching it and stuff. I'm like, really? Like, is that going to happen? And I was questioning whether it was going to or not, because like you said, none of this had been in the marketing or anything. And then it doesn't happen. What happens is that the final confrontation is their confrontation, almost pretty much in secret in the front, in the parking lot of the mental hospital. Right.
And so what's fascinating is that while they do this, it's really it's cool because Ellie Staple, Sarah Paulson's character, which I think she did a good job. People were like criticizing some things about her. I think it's so unfair. I thought she did a fantastic job. She did great.
Yeah.
They reveal she basically, when David Dunn does the touch of the hand and it reveals who she is. And you see everything that very similar to the end of Unbreakable. Yeah, very similar to that, where the mastermind or whatever kind of reveals himself. And that alone I think automatically made critics go, oh, this is exactly like Unbreakable, the first one, and then they drown David Dunn, they kill everyone, and she thinks that they hidden this, but then it's revealed that Mr. Glass, while he was because like a League of Shadows or whatever, or like a Hydra, covert thing, the Hydra, like basically think of League of Shadows / Hydra. That they all have comic books. Yeah, they all have shamrock or clover tattoos. Yeah, so that's kind of like their symbol. So that is the trope that M. Night brings into the real world of the Eastrail 177 trilogy. I did it right that time, by the way. Yes. You did. So that, I think, traumatized a lot of people. Like, what is that? I can't believe it. Which then it's revealed that Mr. Glass was recording all this video. They thought they were hiding it, and then they reveal that he went a certain way in the mental institution, so all these different cameras could see him, record everything the Beast was doing, like climbing on the walls and seeing David Dunn take on this Beast, flipping over cars and whatnot in front of the mental institution. Yeah, punching holes and breaking through metal doors. So being superheroes and superpowered beings, sends it out to the world, and we'll just leave it at that. And basically it's revealed that everyone on their phones and anyone who has internet basically starts getting the video footage of all this crazy stuff happening. And it basically it it undoes everything that Clover. I don't know. I'm not even sure if they even said that they have a name.
They don't. They didn't say the name.
We can just say they're calling the 4-Leaf Clover organization, the whatever Hydra organization, and it basically overcomes that, and then everyone at the very end is seeing these feats, and then basically it goes back to that. Everyone will find out that superheroes can and do exist in this world. That Mr. Glass's whole intention from the very beginning of Unbreakable was his point. And it was kind of a gut punch a little bit for me at first.
It is for real because they kill and they do it slowly, right? For you to figure out, oh my gosh, this is what's actually going to happen, because the Beast, again, here's a big spoiler, like it's revealed that Mr. Glass basically created the Beast as well, because the Beast's dad was on the same train that David Dunn was on, and that sent Kevin Wendell Crumb down this path of abuse, and it basically with the mom abusing him and basically turning him into the Beast over all these years.
Well, which, by the way, really fast, I don't know about you, Ryan, but for some reason, and again, I'm not trying to act like, I figured this out like one time. I always assumed that the train was part of it. Like, I always thought that. I thought that because he goes to the train site. Doesn't he go to the train site in Split?
Yeah, he goes to the train in Split. But like, I always, I didn't know why. I didn't know why, what the purpose was. I thought for some reason, I just kind of always assumed that. So when they revealed the big secret, like he's like, and David Dunn's son from the which is still funny. It's from the first Unbreakable, the same guy. He was like, he's your dad. He killed your dad on the train. I'm like, didn't we already know this? No.
And I was like, oh, I guess not. I guess I just always assumed
it was the same
his
train.
Dad died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or whatever. So, but yeah, like, I think that's interesting that, again, like, because what he was looking for, he created also kind of accidentally.
But when he figures that out, he he's conflicted because he's like in cahoots with Mr. Glass and he likes Mr. Glass, but then he like figures that out and then he kills him, basically, causes fatal damage and he slowly dies.
Right.
So he's going to die. And then there's this scene with him and Casey Cook, and you think like, because he says this thing where he's like, we'll settle this at the top of the tower. And then you think, oh man, are they really going to go to this tower? And then just as soon as he starts to like go towards the tower, he gets shot and then he dies. And you're like, oh, and then David Dunn dies as well. Like he gets like, I'm like, no, are they just going to drown him to knock him out or something? Like, no, you can't kill him. Like, no, like, like that was the biggest gut punch of the whole movie for me.
Yeah, that was pretty nuts. I thought he was going to survive, which I think you still can technically like revive him. I mean, he could just like he's unbreakable.
Yeah,
right? He could like just be knocked out. There's ways to get around that. I think even like both characters, maybe Mr. Glass, you couldn't do that, but what I think, what's interesting, one of the weird things about this movie is that it's called Glass, but Mr. Glass doesn't really show up until like 40 minutes.
Yeah, it takes a long time for him to show up.
And I think that's maybe one of my criticisms. I feel like the pace could have been up a little bit.
Yeah.
I told you that. And I think that's my main criticism of the movie. Honestly, at this point, is that I love the fact these movies are slow. I love Unbreakable because it's slow and takes its time. And I love Split, same reason. And I think Glass for the most part. But I think it takes a while to really. It has to kind of Elijah.
Yeah, it has to get its footing and combine both universes of the things and set everything up. And
right. But what's fascinating is you have Elijah, who again, I guess for me, I wish that Elijah wasn't so sedated, or he pretends to be sedated for most of the movie, and then till like the last. But at the same time, when he does come back, it's like, oh, it looks so right. Because Samuel Jackson had like talked about like I think last year like all his favorite roles, and Elijah was in the top 5 of his favorite roles ever, because I love the character Elijah.
Yeah, and he's like, his Instagram, he's like, the wait was totally worth it. He's like totally down with how Glass turned out. And although he doesn't show up in the movie for a while, like his plan and everything is, his fingerprints, his DNA is all over this movie and why everything is happening, especially towards the end. Right. Especially and once you find out what happens at the end, it's over all 3 movies, like in Split even,
Yeah, he overshadows that too, because again, he's the reason why that he exists in the first place. And here's the thing: when Elijah reveals himself that he's not drugged, he's actually like, I've been faking it and I've been biding my time this whole time. which again, he knew he was going to have an opportunity to do something. He just didn't know what and when it was. And I saw someone criticizing that, like, so he was just waiting this whole time. Like, yeah, he can't do anything. Obviously, he's freaking like in a wheelchair, for God's sakes. It's not like he can just get up and punch people. He literally can only outsmart people, but he can't do it until he gets someone to physically capture that. And then when the beast came, that's when he knew, this is my time. That's why he was biding his time the whole time. So again, word for me,
it's like a realistic thing. It's like he's not like the Joker that's gonna escape the mental asylum every other week.
Exactly. It's that realism.
He's got one shot to do this in his life. You know what I mean? And that makes total sense to me.
Yeah. And so again, I love how M. Night grounds Glass even in that reality. So like you had the very beginning with David Dunn, the Overseer, versus the Beast, and which I loved. I love
that whole scene is amazing.
It's a great scene. And for people, if you haven't seen it or you have seen it, you're like, well, that wasn't a very big fight. I think that's the point. This is not a movie based in complete like superhero, it's trying to steep it as much as in reality as possible, which again, you have a guy, acting like a beast and on all fours charging David Dunn at the very end. That's not obviously realistic, but again, in all possible, or climbing on the ceiling or whatever. But what I'm saying is, you're not going to have this like knockout, drag out fight. Because even like in Unbreakable, what does David Dunn do to the guy who's like giant and he has the family?
Yeah, he just kind of
killed the mom and dad.
Grapples him.
He puts him in a sleeper hold. Yeah, grapples him and puts him to sleep. And what does he do against him? He grabs him and they're just kind of pulling and banging into walls and things like that because he's trying to subdue him. He's not trying to knock him out. He's not trying to box him. That's not his game. His game is like, I'm going to take this guy out because you know what? They're not all fighters. You know, they're not like all of a sudden going to magically be able to take a punch or, which I'm not saying, the Overseer couldn't, but they end up falling out a window, and that's when Ellie Staples there, and they take him out. So you don't have this elaborate action scene. It's cool, it looks great, you anticipate it, and then you get in there, and it's just you get into the deconstruction of why are these people doing what they're doing, and what not.
I mean, up to that point, the movie is kind of giving the audience what it expects. And for my money, and we can get back to that at some point, but like that whole first 30 minutes of the movie, I do love. Like, there's a lot of great world building, great storytelling. Like, there's a lot of food for thought in that I really liked a lot.
Yeah, and so you have this movie that's kind of building towards that, and it's building towards something, and M. Night is giving us like this reason or what's going to happen. How is the Beast and Elijah going to team up? How is it going to affect David Dunn? You knew by the previews, like it probably, they get out eventually, something happens. And I thought it was really clever how he did it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I felt like how he played that dumb character, subdued character for so long that everyone just kind of took it for granted. And he finally, when his time came, it made sense. And he was out doing his thing. No one took him as a physical threat. So no one took him seriously still until he outsmarted everyone. And I do feel like, I think he did a good job. Again, I would have preferred it, do it a little bit sooner in the movie, but whatever. It works. At this time, I've only seen it once, so it works fine for me now. But then you've got, I don't know. I just think that it made sense because he, in the end of Unbreakable, it says that Elijah stayed in an institution. Like that's
for the criminally insane or whatever.
Yeah, for the criminally insane, because that's where he belonged. And it's just like you said, this is a base in reality. And here's the other thing I thought was amazing, and I felt was so perfect. To me and my friend Dave from AKA Father's Figures, he brought up a good point. We both geeked out about David Dunn and what he was doing with his son. Like that was like the best.
We should just get into that right now.
Yeah, really fast. So David Dunn, in the movie Unbreakable, he works security at a football stadium, and that's what his job is. And we don't know what he's doing up in Glass until we see that he actually owns a security store that he sells like devices
home security,
and home security, and with his son, and it's called Dunn Security. And I was like, that is genius.
Yeah.
And that his son is the Oracle for him, and
Oracle, Robin, sidekick type of character. I loved that so much.
Genius. It was genius.
And they used
basing it in reality.
They used the home security thing, and they have like the back room. It's almost like a Batcave kind of thing, and he has the Bluetooth headset that he just, they communicate with each other, and they like track their crimes and stuff, and they have almost like an Alfred too, like they have this way of communicating, like when he's just going out on a walk, that's what they call it, like, are you going out on a walk today, blah blah blah, and that's their code word for like, I'm going to go out and bump into people and see who needs their ass kicked, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And and the way the movie opens with like just a regular like street crime kind of thing, and seeing like the overseer kick somebody's ass, like it's so good. But like you wondered, like that's one of the bigger questions, like what did David Dunn do after Unbreakable? Did he maintain that? And that's ends up what he didn't do anything like. And again, this is part of the movie, and it keeps it grounded in reality, almost like a Batman thing. He kept local. He didn't go like solve world peace or whatever. He like stayed local and helped the people in his town, and he felt like he was making a difference. And just seeing all these like superhero tropes, like a Batman, a Batcave, an Alfred Oracle kind of character, like all kind of work in this realistic setting. I just love that so much. And again, having it be 19 years later, seeing the same actors, it gives it this extra sense of, weight and time that I don't think you would have otherwise.
And though I loved what he did with all this, and I'm curious what you think, because Unbreakable's my favorite. Like Unbreakable is one of my favorite movies ever. We all talk about it. I will say, I think that Glass is more of a sequel to Split than it is a sequel to Unbreakable. It's obviously a sequel to Unbreakable, but it feels more connected to Split because it came out sooner. Yeah. And which is I think is fine, but I do think that Bruce Willis wasn't in it enough. And I also think though that a lot was on the cutting room floor, because he said he had like a 6-hour cut of the movie at one point, and he kept editing it down. And I'm sure there's a lot of scenes that were edited off.
Yeah. Hopefully some of that will get released.
Because I think they must have filmed a lot more Bruce Willis stuff, and I think it just didn't flow to the story. Flow to the story as much as it did. And my friend Dave and I would both agree that it definitely felt like less of a sequel. We would have preferred more of a sequel to Unbreakable, but I still, it was still fine. If that makes any sense. Because it's a minor complaint.
Yeah, because David Dunn's my favorite character, I wanted more of him, but I do think that they each, when you really think about it, they each kind of do get pretty even footing, I think. Although I would want more of the main hero character, of course. And like we were saying, like
I would say Bruce Willis gets a little bit less. I think James McAvoy gets the most.
I would say so, slightly. Yeah.
Slightly, yeah.
But like we were mentioning earlier, I just want to talk about this. They give him a superhero name, like a real legit superhero name, and it's the Overseer. And I loved it so much. And it's so funny. It took him 19 years to actually get one that like stuck, I guess. But like you find out, like, again, this is like a very Alfred talking to Bruce Wayne kind of moment where like his son's pulled up all these like news articles and stuff like, oh, the cops are looking for you, and you're a vigilante, but here's all the names they have for you, and it was like the Tiptoe Man, and the people that were supporting him were calling him like the Green Team and stuff like that. There was all these other different names, and then he was like, and then they finally settled on one that's the most popular. It's the Overseer, and I love that so much.
I love the Overseer,
and the thing that really actually legit got me and choked me up when I was watching the movie was later on in the movie when Elijah breaks out and he's like looking up all this stuff on the computer, and he finds out that David's still what he's doing, and he's called the Overseer, and he gets on the intercom system, and he actually calls him the Overseer. You better get out here, Overseer. Overseer. He calls him that, dude. I had chills, dude. Like, I don't know, just the fact that it's like finally got to that point, and it's like a real supervillain calling a real superhero his real superhero name. Like, I don't know, it just really got to me.
But think about it, like just everything. There is no. What's amazing about, I think, Glass is that it really shows you so many different things. So like we're talking about, again, based in that realism world, right? So there's no costumes. He's got his security like poncho thing on, and it's very basic. And again, based in realism, no one's gonna get out and get I love costumes. Everyone knows me, I love costumes. But again, it's grounded in reality as much as possible. So it's about as costumey as it's gonna get. okay, it makes sense. So here's what's amazing about what M. Night did. So if you think about Unbreakable and then Split, and these two people all of a sudden have superpowers, you start to think, if you really get deep, how come there isn't any other superheroes that we don't know about? Are they all in secret? Why is it only in Philadelphia? And
we find out why.
That's immediate. We find out exactly why. And I think that pissed off a lot of people, which is a shame because it's not like, I thought it was genius what he did, because one of the things, and someone on Twitter did this after I'd seen it, of course, when I was going through, because I've been reading fan reactions, and they are all over the place. They're mostly positive, but
yeah, they really are.
Literally, they are like either I hated this movie to I love this movie to I like that movie too. It wasn't very good, and it went from it'll literally be one after another. Be like, I hated it, I loved it, and then you'll see. Ignore the critics. It's not as bad as they say it is. Like I see tons of that in the hashtag. If you go in there right now, there's a lot of stuff that I can't read because I don't speak Spanish or any other language. So there's lots of other people.
You can hit the translate button.
Unfortunately, that's true. I could. I keep forgetting how to translate button. Anyway, that being said, I'm amazed at how everyone is just like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But what's amazing is when I was going through that, someone just put hashtag and it was a quote from the movie. And it said, if superheroes are real, then how come there are only 3 of you? And she says that in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, holy crap, I forgot. Like, she's totally playing that up. And I remember being in the movie going, I forgot. In the movie, I was like, yeah, how come there's only 3 of them? That is kind of weird. And then again, and M. Night plays that up.
And that's the whole point of that whole middle part.
The whole point of the movie.
Which is great.
The whole point of the movie is that there's a reason why there's only 3 of them.
Well, not only that, it's like the whole second act is all about Ellie Staple trying to convince the 3 of them that superheroes aren't real. There's logical explanations for everything that's happened, and she tries to really make them believe that they're not who they are. And there's also the same thing is happening to the audience too, because as an audience viewer, you're like, huh, well maybe they aren't really superheroes. Is it all in their head?
And people, yeah, and so people have criticized Glass, saying, why didn't they just kill him in the first place? And it's because they have a code. They don't want to kill because they are weird. Because any comic you read, again, this goes back to the comic book trope, and this is the secret society always usually has a kind of ethic or something like that, or something that's kind of.
If there were a deleted scene in this movie and somebody was asking these questions, they'd be saying what you're saying right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's exactly. So to me, I feel like she does say that. She says, I'm here to try to convince you. Tell me there was whatever, she says we tried to convince you.
I kept wondering too, well, why does she have only 3 days? I only have 3 days. Well, that was their rule.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, exactly. That was the rule. They only had 3 days. You had limited time to convince these people that they're not superheroes. And she tried. And when they failed, that's why they all ended up dying. And when I go back and think about that, I think about, holy crap, again, the comic book trope of the secret organization is there. And he's gone through all of them in the superhero, and then again, you go back into one thing leads into another. It offshooted into the fact that he leaves it open that now that secret organization is done, it's been exposed, and these heroes are real. Or as far as people can now, see these amazing things they can do outside themselves. What's going to happen? The secret organization's been exposed. They themselves haven't been exposed, but the people that are out there, they see all this and they go, "Holy crap! What is it going to lead to?" And Elijah says, "This isn't the end. This is the origin story." And again,
this is story the whole time. I was like, "Oh my god!" Well, they even make the point, Ellie Staple, I think, says something along the lines of we have to stomp it out at the source, because when one person pops up, other ones start to pop up around them. And that's exactly. The point of Mr. Glass is the first one. He's doing what he's doing, and he ends up creating David the Overseer, and he ends up creating the Beast. I mean, that's part of the whole lore, coming together.
Yeah, the whole lore, again, going into the deep connective tissue of comic books, and they bring it into, the fact that there's a reason why these people have kind of escaped that kind of, they don't know who the overseer is. They couldn't just go find him. And, Elijah was in.
Plus, they say, too, like, doesn't she say at the end, like, as long as you were just beating up random muggers and people on the street, like, that deserved it, like, we were going to leave you alone or whatever. But as soon as you kind of decided you were going to go after the beast.
Take after the beast. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have so to me, I could see why critics didn't like that, because it wasn't this giant fight between the beast and the overseer. It was a little bit of a fight, and then they got shot, and then everyone's kind of laying on the ground, and there wasn't any big fight. And then you had the reveal of it goes out to everyone, and that superpowers are real. And again, just like how, John Brealey was telling me, we were talking on text a while ago. He said, it really, one of the problems that M. Night really beats you over the head, like, you have this power within you. Everyone has, so many people have these powers, and they just don't do anything with them.
Yeah, that is a huge like part of this movie, like externally.
Yeah. And I think he definitely hits it on. He goes a little heavy handed at the end. So when you have like, he went heavy handed in 3 different directions. He had the really crazy twist of the secret organization trope. You had the origin story trope. You had like, it's going to reveal all these other heroes, like twist kind of thing at the end that I wouldn't even argue it's a twist. I think you all see that coming, because Elijah's doing something on the computer. You see that. So it's not like it's that big of a surprise, but that was his whole intention the whole time, was to expose everything, because he knew he only had a short period of time. Because that was, again, this is a genius. This is why I love what he did, is that what M. Night did, is the fact that he ended up doing what he wanted to do in the first place, which was expose that superheroes were real and that he wasn't a mistake.
Yeah. And he gets the ultimate. He wins at the end. Mr. Glass wins.
That's why it's Glass.
He has the ultimate victory. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's ultimately why it's named the movie Glass. It's not because he's the main character. It's because he's the ultimate. He's the one that wins in the end. And even though he's an evil being and he killed lots of people and he's awful, he ends up doing something that those secret organization is trying to keep secret. And it's like he almost knows there's something keeping it secret, and that's why he knows he has to do it. It's crazy. And this is where, again, I go back to the genius of M. Night, and I could see why people don't like it, because they don't want to see the hero die. David Dunn dies, and that's a bummer.
Well, they loved it in Logan.
Gut. Oh, yeah. We don't want to talk about that's a whole other podcast. But no, they kill the hero, they kill the villains, and then it's the secret organization kind of rules. It just kind of, again, I thought it was really unfair when Ellie Staple realizes that all the cameras that she put in to keep track of Mr. Glass backfires on her, and she does that scream. Yeah. And I saw a lot of people criticizing it. Like, I saw some people on YouTube being like, "Oh, it's just cheesy and dumb." I thought it was dumb. And I'm like, what? She's like, she knows she's done. Like, they're done, man.
Yeah,
like, they are.
I mean, like, if you had any doubt of like, oh, they'll just cover it up, they'll do whatever. I mean, that reaction there kind of shows you like they're effed.
Yeah, exactly. They're done. Yeah. And I felt that it was an appropriate response. That didn't bother me. I thought it was a good. I like the shot even. I love the shot and the idea of her screaming and walking in this empty hallway that's all white. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
So I thought that was unfair of people. I mean, whatever. It's all subjective anyway, but I thought it was fine. And to me, the ending is a lot. Like, again, because he does all those things at the very end of the movie, Ryan, I felt I could see why critics were like, this is too much. This is, whatever. It wasn't what I wanted. They wanted the beast to get beat by David and the overseer. They wanted Elijah to be probably put back and be like, we're going to come out again, and be like, okay. He ended it like
Charles.
he was supposed to. No.
Like an X-Men thing.
Charles, you should have killed me when you had the chance.
Basically.
Yeah, but no, he doesn't do that. And this is why I love M. Night, and this is why these are, to me, these art house movies, is that he did it his way.
Apparently he had this finale in mind 19 years ago when he wrote Unbreakable, allegedly.
Yeah, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
To me, it makes sense.
And he was always, and again, it was also one of those things where he's like, man, I didn't know if I was going to have the guts to actually go through with this and do this ending and do what I'm doing in this movie. But he said that he was glad that he went through with it. So,
and I for one, I didn't love it at first. I'm gonna make that very clear. Just like Unbreakable, I didn't love Unbreakable at first, but the more because obviously Unbreakable, I just kind of, it went one ear, went in one ear, went out the next, because I just didn't care about that stuff at the time. And then when my friends brought it up later to me, I was like, oh, I need to revisit this movie. Okay, I love this movie now. And with Glass, it's a little bit different because I've been so much more invested. And when I left the theater, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept talking about it over the weekend, and I just kept tweeting about it. I'm like, guys, I cannot stop thinking about Glass. I didn't love the ending at first, but the more I talk about it with Ryan and my other friends, and the more I think about it in my head and dissect it, I want to see this movie really fast now, and I want to watch it again. I want to give it a real good once over. And as of right now, I don't hate it. And maybe I'll watch it again and I will hate it. I mean, there's movies like
You're right.
that I flip-flop all. The Last Jedi is one of those movies. I one minute I'll like it, one minute I hate it. I mean, I can't make up my mind about it. And I don't think it's that bad.
I'm thinking that like there's shocking stuff, like there's some disappointing stuff, like, oh, Bruce Willis dies. But I think it's one of those movies that the themes are so clear that now that you know what's going to happen and you're already thinking about the pieces afterwards, I think the more you watch it, I think the more you'll understand why M. Night made the decisions that he made and how all three movies connect to each other. And I think that they are going to have a long shelf life beyond their initial release, especially now that they are a trilogy.
Well, right. And I think this, and again, I don't think obviously M. Night wanted to make a movie that he wanted to make. He also wanted to make sure he was going to recoup his money. But and I think that's why he also wanted to protect his name and say, you know what, I want to do it my way. I think he also knew, because of the success of Split, he knew he was going to recoup his money, no problem. I think he knew. Mm-hmm. He probably talked to some people, Blumhouse, I'm not sure Blumhouse has these kind of people, but I'm sure they have some kind of projection, like, you know what, a sequel will probably project around this, if he had Unbreakable in it, and whatever, and with tracking and things like that. Or maybe he tracked it himself and talked to some people that track stuff in Hollywood that he's friends with, or could, just ask some questions like, what would I be looking at financially? And they said, this is what you're looking at. And he said, you know what, it means more to me to finish it the way I want to without overdoing it and keeping it in faith, and also betting on himself. And I think just knowing, because here's the thing, if M. Night wanted to end it more commercially, he would have done that. Yeah, it would have. Let's think about it. If he wanted to make a crap load of money, he would have put more money into it. He would have said, okay, they want to see the Overseer and they want to see the Beast. I'm going to make the current
modern day superhero crazy version of it.
Or he didn't have to do that. He just up it and make it a little bit more eventful and make it a little more streamlined. But he never did, because he wanted to tell a specific story. Yeah. And you got to give him all the credit in the world for doing it. And I think he knew, I bet you anything, I think he knew what he was doing. I think he knew this movie is going to probably upset some people. It's not going to I think he knew that. I think he knew. And I think I think he's learned by now that he can't take anything for granted. He's just going to do what he wants to do. And if it's a hit, it's a hit. If it doesn't, he'll do something else. And I think he bet on himself. And I think it's paying off. This movie is made. I saw a CBR, and again, this is CBR, which is they're trash. But this movie is made worldwide 88 million worldwide on its opening weekend. Yeah. Okay. This movie cost $20 million to make. So he's made hand over fist. He's fine. Yeah. Like, I mean, he's gonna bring in all this money. He's good. And I remember tracking for the film. It's funny. I remember CBR said it came under expectations. Tracking said it started as low 70 worldwide release of worldwide. They said it's tracking at 70 million worldwide opening weekend to 100 million worldwide opening weekend. And it started right in the middle, almost 88 million. Right. Like it's right there. Yeah. So you're telling me it's like, no, don't stop. So if you see that article, just know that the tracking if you look at my Twitter feed, you can go back a couple days from now. They said it's tracking between, even if it goes to the low 70 million worldwide, it's
still a success for this. Yes.
That's a success. If it's not a success, if it's not number one and it's like number 3 and it made like 10 million, that it bombed then. But it didn't. Not in the least. This is all despite, it made 88 million despite a terrible Rotten Tomatoes score that people like live or die by a lot of times.
And domestically, it's it's neck and neck and a little bit more than Split.
So, and here's the thing. The one thing that Split had going for it was good word of mouth.
Yeah.
And it had a decent Rotten Tomato score of 70%, right? Here's the difference that it remains to be seen if it'll make a difference, but I don't know. The audience score for Glass right now is still pretty high. It's at 78%. And like the 35% is, so to me is a Rotten score. To me, I think the word of mouth on Glass isn't going to be as bad as people thought. Yeah. I think people saw that 35 and went, "Oh, it's terrible." No, or it's going to be bomb. It's going to bomb. It's not going to do as good. And I think people, they haven't seen it yet, but they probably would say, "Well, it probably won't do as well the second weekend." I don't know that. I mean, it's not going to be number one again. Probably. I'm not sure what comes out next week, but I can tell you this. I don't think it's going to be as big of a drop as people, like a giant drop. It's going to be in the normal, what's the normal second week? Like 40%.
I thought it was like 50 or something, or at least
50. It'll be 50. It'll be a normal drop, but it won't be like a giant drop to where it's like a bomb, like a 80% drop where it just totally bombs and tanks.
Yeah. But again, it's like a lot of the movies that normally the Martin Luther King Jr. weekend has a few new releases in it, but most of them stayed away because of Glass. Like they gave it kind of a wide open playing field. And again, it's in all these theaters, it's in IMAX. There's not a lot really coming out until, oh my gosh, like February. Like there's like 2 more weeks really that it could kind of like do good.
I wish I knew what was coming out next week because I'm very curious. Because it's
The Kid Who Would Be King and Serenity.
Serenity, I have not seen much for Serenity advertising wise, so I don't know. Glass could take number one. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't, but it could still take number one. But because like I said, I don't think this movie's getting that bad of word of mouth. I think if it's only bad of word of mouth as a Rotten Tomato score, but there's so many people out there that I'm seeing that are saying they liked it, opposed to not. Then I think more people are going to give it a chance that it's going to overcome the 35%. Even someone told me, when I posted the numbers for the weekend, it's 88 million worldwide. I'm like, hey, this guy had full control, wrote and directed the movie himself, cost him financed it himself for 20 million, made 88 million opening weekend. This movie was a success. And he even said, and he added overcame a 35% Rotten Tomatoes score. Yep. I was like, yeah. That's a great point because they usually will, if that 35%, like, again, this movie was never going to make 100 million opening weekend. It would have if the reviews were off the charts, and maybe, that's if they were off the charts, maybe. But even then, I don't know if it does. So to me, this movie was always about to make about 40, 50 million, 60 million opening weekend. I thought 60 would be a giant success as far as domestic. I thought 100 million worldwide would have been great. It's 88 million, still not bad. Like that's great. Yeah. And like I said, this movie, I think it's going to prove to people that it's already overcome the negative output. I think so too. Output
for that first weekend for sure.
Yeah. I already see people being like, I liked it. Just seeing, if you look at the hashtag, it's all over the place as far as like, it's in a good way. I actually see more positive than negative. I really do. And I see a lot of people being like, I didn't love it, didn't hate it, but I see mostly people liking it. Yeah. They're saying, I don't ignore the critics. I see that quite a bit.
I'm just going back to like, if you're a fan of M. Night and you're a fan of comic book stuff and superhero movies and you're a fan of Unbreakable, I think that you're going to at least like Glass. And you're going to want to talk about it and want to see it. You know what I mean? Because most of our friends are kind of in the same boat, I would say, that have seen the movie.
Yeah. And most people, I think most people I talk to like it. Like they don't hate it. And I think again, critics are meant to kind of like, to kind of spout like their disappointment and they're kind of,
or be one way or the other. It's the best thing ever. It's the worst thing ever.
Yeah. And again, it's whatever. We're critics too in some way, and we're more forgiving. I don't know, but to me, I just knowing again, like John Campea had a good point, and I'll bring him up because he said he loved Unbreakable, he loves Split, he loves Split a lot. He couldn't wait for Glass, and he was extremely disappointed, and he brought the pacing issues and I do agree that I think there is some pacing issues in the middle of the film. I think it definitely it gets a little slower grind than the other films comparatively. I just don't necessarily think it makes it like suck. And I think the third act, again, the third act is you either will like it or hate it. And it's either, it'll take you either way. To me, it feels like a continuation of the comic book tropes, and I got behind it and I love it. And I think it's going to age. I think it's going to age really well.
Yeah.
Like Unbreakable. I think it's going to overcome that 35%. Because again, critics didn't like Blade Runner.
Exactly.
When it first came out. They trashed that movie. Now it's regarded as one of the best science fiction movies ever made. And Unbreakable wasn't exactly setting the world on fire. It had a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I bet if it came out now, people would destroy that movie. And let me tell you, that movie became a huge cult classic. It's overcome. He made a sequel for it, for God's sake, 17 years later. So I mean, my point is, Rotten Tomato scores are only as powerful as much as you give them credit for. And these movies can survive Rotten Tomato scores, just like Venom has, and people can like I said, it's not a movie that you're going to immediately put in and be like, I'm going to get entertained for 2 hours and be enthralled. It's a movie you revisit, I'd say, every couple of years, or maybe if you're a huge fan like we are, maybe every year or something like that. But you watch it every other year and you kind of watch them all and you go, oh, those are good movies.
Yeah.
And then you put them back in, or you show someone who hasn't seen it. And it's one of those things you just don't revisit a ton, but you still love it. Like, I don't watch Unbreakable like every month. I don't, I'm not going to watch Unbreakable over Infinity War if I want to be entertained and just kind of lose myself in something. No, I watch Unbreakable when I haven't seen it in a while and I'm like, man, I love that movie.
Yeah.
So I pop it in. Glass is no exception, but I think it's a fitting end of the trilogy. I'm going to ask you this, Ryan, and I'll answer it for you first. Would I want to see more films in this continuity? I'd be open to it. I know M. Night kind of said the same thing. He said he'd be open to it.
I thought he said he was done.
Open to it. He said, I saw it in a video today that he said he's all about if he found a good story that he liked the characters, he found a character that would fit in that, he wouldn't be opposed to it, but he doesn't have it right now.
Okay.
And so he did leave it open, but just like he left it open with the Unbreakable.
Right.
He didn't close a door. He never closed a door, because if Glass was a giant, or if Glass is a giant success, you keep making these movies. Maybe you give it a couple years and don't make another one, because he's made his trilogy. He's completed it now. He can give it some rest. So he doesn't have to go right back into it. And he's not in the business to make Unbreakable continuity films like James Cameron's into the Avatar business, as he's described. I'm not in the movie business anymore. I'm in the Avatar making business or whatever. Yeah, so I like Avatar, for the record, but I'm just saying that's not M. Night. Yeah. That's not his bag.
Like the fact that Split and Glass are back to back is more unusual than usual. Yeah.
But would you want more films?
I would be open to it, because I think still at the end of the day, it's like, I don't think anything's going to undo or unravel what happens in this movie, because it is quite definitive as an origin story of a universe.
Yeah. Good. That's actually really well said.
And doesn't, Elijah's mom even kind of say that at the end of the movie, like, we're here at the beginning. Yeah. So I mean, it's an origin story of an entire world. Like, what does that world look like 10, 20, 100 years later? There's a lot you can do.
Something maybe that's something he doesn't make until another 10 years.
Yeah, and you don't have to.
Which would be awesome. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of this. And I'll be honest, and this is coming from someone like me who loves these movies and loves what M. Night has done in these movies. And I'll be honest, I don't need a sequel right now. I could wait 10 years. Isn't that weird to say?
It is weird, but I totally get it.
You can get what I'm saying,
I totally agree.
Point. Yeah. What is that world? What is that world that discovers they potentially could have superpowers all at once? Like, oh man, like, this has all been revealed to me. I could wait 10 years for M. Night to make that movie. And that would be a fascinating film to see what the world would look like after they found out they have superpowers. What kind of movie would that be? You could make that a big budget movie at that point.
Of course you could.
Because that would be a global that would make more sense, actually.
A global epidemic kind of deal. Yeah.
To me, that would be phenomenal. So, and I'll be honest, I would not be shocked if he did that.
Sure.
I mean, 5 years from now, 6, I think he'll give it some time. He'll make another couple movies, but I think Glass will be successful. I think the 4K Blu-ray sales will blow the charts off everything when they release a special box set. It's going to be super successful. I think it's going to grow its audience because of the word of mouth and how everyone will hold it as a high regarded trilogy. Even though everyone's like saying that right now, I don't know if I like it. It's going to grow on people.
Yeah.
Just like I think Unbreakable will. I really do. And I think he'll revisit it eventually. And I'd be fine waiting 10 years for it.
Yeah.
Because I think it needs space. We got these two movies pretty close together. Let's give it some time, but let's revisit and see what the world looks like with superheroes after they discover it.
Yeah.
You know? That to me is what's so fat, what you could do. And I think I don't put it past M. Night for doing that.
Yeah. Like you said, like we got both of these movies like right one after the other, and it does feel quite complete. And I would be totally fine with waiting because, like I said, there's a lot to chew on in all three of these movies, and they would just work so well together. And 10 years from now, if he brings it back up, I'm fine with that. That'll be cool. One thing I did want to bring up was that the fact that he made the movie 19 years later, he actually used deleted scenes and unused footage from Unbreakable in, I think, 3 different spots in this movie, and I thought that was really interesting and a very effective use of that footage. What did you think of that stuff?
That one scene in particular where David's talking to Joseph, I thought was from the movie, and then I realized, no, that's not in the movie. I don't remember this. I think this is a deleted scene. I remember hearing there was deleted scenes in it, and then the scene when Elijah's on the ride. I distinctly remember that scene, and it's devastating. Yeah. It is. Like, he's holding those giant stuffed animals. Oh my god! I just want to cry right there. It's like that stuff makes me.
It was like a 5-minute deleted scene that I also vividly remember from the DVD. But like the fact that he found a way to like incorporate that into this movie, and it's so fun. Like if you go
sympathy, man. Yeah. You get so much more sympathy for him.
Like if you go back and watch the DVD or the Blu-ray and Shyamalan introduces it, he's like, yeah, it kind of just stops the movie and it stops the pacing and there's no reason for it because it's redundant or this or that, or maybe I'll use it again sometime. Or like there's some, it's almost like in the back of his head.
He knows he might, I might use this again. Yeah. But that's the thing with, I think Glass is going to have so many deleted scenes, man. Because I remember reading his Twitter.
His Twitter was amazing to follow too, because he started with like, I started following him like right when Split came out, and it was like, okay, Split's a success, and we're gonna make the new movie, and then it's gonna be called Glass, and then you went on this journey with him on Twitter where he was like,
he'd update us.
I wrote the first draft, I wrote the second draft, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then they were filming it, and you went through the whole thing with him. Yeah.
And he talked about, I've got like a 4-hour cut of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I've narrowed it down. I've got a clear direction now.
Yeah.
So, and he talked about cutting down, like, it's 3 hours long or 4 hours long. I think he even said 6 hours long at some point.
Yeah, like the assembly cut or whatever, probably.
Yeah, so I think he definitely I think there's scenes in a trailer. Isn't there like a train scene with David? Like it's in the trailer.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch the trailers and see if I can pick out some stuff. I know there's probably alternate shots too.
For sure. Yeah. But I think there's in the first trailer for Glass, I think there's a train scene, like in a subway with David in his like garb. I swear I've seen that. I swear. I could be wrong, but anyway, there's scenes with David that he cut.
Surely.
I think he gets the most cut out of this movie because he's the least connected because James McAvoy is tour force.
Plus he's like the least integral part of like the through line of the plot, like the story. Like he does what he's there to do. But I almost want to see like a separate movie, and that's the thing. It's like there's all this history and stuff. I just want to see another movie that takes place before this.
I want comic books. I want Overseer comic books where or a mini series. Dynamite or not Dynamite, but Boom. Get a hold of M. Night, say, dude, you're not going to make any of these comics. Or maybe I would love for M. Night to continue the Eastrail 177. Yes, I did it again. Trilogy through comic books. How amazing would that be?
Actually have comics
instead of doing film.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, actually have real comics and base that and have him like give the writers direction, say, this is what you're going to do, and you're going to write the story, and just all approved scripts.
I was kind of surprised. I just, in the back of my head, I thought like maybe that would happen anyway because we were waiting so long for an Unbreakable sequel or whatever. But I guess
I kept thinking the same thing.
But I guess he just kept it so close to his. Yeah, exactly. But now that he's done what he set out to do, maybe something could happen. I don't know.
I might have to. We should do like a petition or something if we can to M. Night and say, dude, we all want to read these comics, man. Give us some overseer like miniseries, like not even ongoing. Give me a miniseries.
Yeah.
Have a story. Give it to an up and coming comic writer that wants to make a name for him or herself, and let him go ham and say, this is what you have to do, and I'll approve a script. I mean, I could see him doing that. Yeah. Because like Unbreakable is a love letter to comics. I assume that M. Night is a comic book reader, and someone, I'm assuming, I don't know how much he reads comics. I'm pretty sure he must. He must have a pretty good inclination.
He's got to have some passion for it to make,
to make these movies. So I need to like look. I have to research that some more. I'm curious how much of a comic book fan he is. He must be at least at some point a hardcore comic book fan and just loves the medium, but just doesn't probably invest in it as much as he used to because he's, an adult and he has to, provide for his family and this is working constantly when you're working in filmmaking and, So yeah, I would love to see comic books based on this universe or continuity, if you will. So I'd take it, but we'll see. I think we'll see I think we could see a film eventually. And I think, I will say this, if he does let comics go, like let people make comics, then I don't think he has a desire to make a movie.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
If he doesn't and he's like, I don't really want to do that, I think
he's got another story. That makes sense.
So I think unless he does like a straight overseer, like, fun 6-issue series explaining how maybe David's or done security and that whole thing gets set up and how he keeps is beating up thugs and kind of telling a side not fun, but like, a little side story kind of thing. But they won't do anything outside of that because if he doesn't let people do that, then that would make more sense. So,
yeah.
But yeah, Glass is good.
It is.
I think it's good. I can't wait to see it again. Actually, I'm actually, this conversation is making me more pumped to actually go watch it. So I'm going to drag someone.
I'm really excited to go see it again and try to absorb more of this. I rewatched Split before I saw Glass, and today I popped in Unbreakable, and once I finish that, maybe I'll go see Glass again sometime this week. One other thing I was going to say is like the way the movie actually really, really ends. That is what got me the most. When they use that final shot of another flashback from Unbreakable, where David is just his son has realized that he's a superhero, and he kind of just holds his finger up to his mouth and he tells him, "Quiet, don't tell." Mm-hmm. And then I was like, that's like the whole crux of the movie too. Is like they kept it a secret, and as soon as the secret got out, like all this stuff happened, but. The thing about this was that the son always wanted people to know, and now he's finally able to kind of let the secret out of the bag and let the world know what his dad was. And I thought that was really, really awesome.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Like in the very end, in the whole movie of Unbreakable, he's trying to explain that who his dad is, and he wants everyone to know how much he's a hero, and then he gets to do that now. That's I didn't think about that. See, and this is the beauty of the M. Night movies is that they all are connected and they call to each other.
And at least that's what that scene being put there explicitly was telling me, and that was really powerful.
And think about there's probably way more than that too, and I think it's brilliant. And again, the Glass movie is not a bad movie. I think it's a solid movie. I don't know if it's a good or great. I think it's good. I don't know if it's great.
It's deep for sure. It's very deep.
It's deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't go in sleepy. You got to go in kind of like buzzed a little bit and say, okay, I'm ready to, not buzz, but you kind of be ready to kind of get hunker down. And that's why I was trepidatious to go see it again in the theater. But now after talking, I just texted a buddy. I'm like, you seen Glass yet? So I'm going to see if he's seen Glass, and I'll make him go with me, and we'll go and eat popcorn, and I'll dive back in. But yeah, Glass is good. We'll see if it's great. I think I'll end up saying it's great after a couple more times of seeing it. I can't wait to watch all the movies kind of like in a couple days of each other and just really hunker down and absorb it. So maybe we'll do an Unbreakable breakdown, split breakdown eventually with Chris Clow. I mean, he literally just saw Unbreakable for the first time tonight. He just texted me and he liked it. But I'm going to pick his brain later. So a big superhero fan like him. Oh yeah, so we might if people want us to do it, we probably will still do it anyway. If once it comes out,
let us know.
If it comes out on 4K. If it comes out on 4K, maybe it's a done deal. We're gonna do it. But but either way, if you guys want us to do it, like let us know. Because I've already done through this movie. Unbreakable and talked about it for 2.5 hours. I could talk about this movie. We've talked about these movies. We just briefly touched on Glass. We're almost at 2 hours, So I mean, come on, we got plenty more to talk about because these movies, the more you watch them, the more you find the connectivity, and the more that you can talk about and how it deepens the mythology of the film. So there's more to talk about. We just have scratched the surface, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. This is almost like an origin story of our discussion of this movie.
Wow.
Yep.
You went there.
I did.
You went there. I know the owner of Batman on Film himself had just recently rewatched, or he actually watched all these movies recently. I'm curious what Bill thinks.
Yeah, I am too. Like he watched the first 2 films, and I think he's going to see Glass next weekend. So
I'm very curious what he thinks. I hope he writes about it or something.
Yeah, he loves Unbreakable and Split. So
he does.
Yes, he's a big fan, especially of Unbreakable. He's a big fan of that one. So
had he seen it before?
Yeah, he's seen Unbreakable. Yeah,
so he had seen it.
Yeah, we had this show where we were discussing like a top 10 superhero moments in any superhero movie, and I think the end of Unbreakable was in everybody's top 10, or in his top 10 at least. Yeah.
Well, that's good. It's definitely in my top 10.
For sure. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
So I guess that's probably a good place to put a pin in it. But yeah, in closing, I'm very satisfied with Glass.
Same.
It's not what I expected, but I wasn't expecting anything specific. And again, it's a very deep film. There's a lot of food for thought, but that's good. And I think that's kind of what this movie and what this trilogy needed. It's this very deep exploration of these comic book archetypes. It goes deeper than comics. And that's kind of the point of, all those undertones are in Unbreakable, but they make it very explicit once you get to Glass. So it almost takes a reprieve in Split because you don't know it's connected, but when you do, it all comes back together in Glass, and then you kind of explore it a little bit more.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think Glass is a satisfying conclusion. I think it's the weakest of the 3, but that's not a detriment to the movie. I just think the other 2 movies are really, because they're not trying to conclude anything, they're own standalone things. They just are a little bit stronger because of that. But Glass, I feel the more times it's viewed and the more you analyze it, the more you're going to like it. And I think that it's designed that way, just like Unbreakable and Split are. I've only seen Split, I think, twice, and I need to rewatch it again. But I didn't buy it on Blu-ray because I'm waiting for something more special.
Yeah,
because it is connected. So with Glass, I'm going to wait. If there's nothing after Glass and it's just like I'm gonna I'm just gonna bite the bullet and buy it.
Yeah.
But right now I haven't yet, just because I'm just waiting, just biding my time. So we'll see. But yeah, I think this is a good conclusion. Yeah. I think this is something that is worthy of a conclusion. I think that I love the fact that it's not what people expected.
Yeah.
Like you said, that was the whole point of M. Night. It was like, it's not gonna end the way you think it is, and that's. Honestly, I'm actually relieved. I would have never have guessed a Hydra element coming in the movie, the trope to come in. And I think it's just looking back, it just sets so much better with me. I'm like, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It's almost like, there's a really great article on THR right now about like,
I need to read that.
Yeah, how like Unbreakable, like what happens in Glass is a natural extrapolation of everything that gets set up in Unbreakable. And it's kind of true. Really, and it's kind of brilliant how it really is the origin story of this world, and Unbreakable is just this little piece and splits this little piece, and then Glass really opens the door but also closes it. I mean, it's really interesting the way this whole thing unfolds.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I guess there will be more to talk about. Hopefully we'll get some of our other buddies on the show if we decide to take this further and talk about Unbreakable and Split. And of course, if we do that, I'm sure more Glass discussion will naturally come up during that.
Yeah. It's more time. We'll give this movie more to talk about.
Exactly. So I guess until then, do you have anything you want to plug or talk about?
Yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at Herman22 with 2 N's, aka P-Thug. You can find me on Marvel Studios News podcast with Sean Gerber. You can also see me on Star Wars podcast, The Saga Continues, and Blaster Cannon Pod. They're all you can all find them on the my Twitter page. They're all on there to follow and download and all that good stuff. And yeah, check me out on there.
Sweet. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. Follow the Batman Podcast Network on Twitter at BatPod Network. And check out the last 2 shows. We've been cranking out BOF podcasts like crazy. Like episode 135 was our interview with Wally Winger, voice of the Riddler, in the Batman Arkham games, and the Return of the Cape Crusaders, and Batman vs. Two-Face animated films, which is really fun. And of course, episode 136 was me and Paul talking Ghostbusters. That was a ton of fun as well. And so I guess that is the end of the show. So for Paul, I'm Ryan. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey now! You've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, batmanpodcastnetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film podcast. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/jet.batmanonfilm. Email Jet via jet@batman-on-film.com. I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.